Just getting all the 1 o'clockers in so they don't get marked late. I appreciate everybody being here on time. It helps. Okay. All righty. So everybody with their cameras on. I really need to see everybody instead of ceilings and walls and stuff. So just make sure your camera's on you. I would appreciate that. Okay. So welcome to week 6. We're halfway through. After today, we'll be halfway through. We'll be done with week 6 content. And as of today, that covers exam 2 material. Okay. Last week we did weeks 4 and 5. And today we'll do 6. So I've sent you a copy of your concept guide to assist you in preparing for exam 2. I tried to be as organized as I could, and as far as laying out the concepts that have been covered in order for the last 3 weeks. Obviously, it's a shortened version of your weekly concept notes. So my suggestion for preparing for the exam would be to start with your concept guide. Okay, you're going to get a lot of information today on environmental, occupational health and teaching, barriers to teaching. Okay, so it's more the extended version. Okay, but once you get to your concept guide, that's what you need to know for the exam. Okay, so if you have a good understanding of your concept guide and you can apply it to practice, okay, what I mean about that is clinical judgment. Okay, so what I mean is that the exam, as you can see, mimics your quizzes. Your quizzes are clinical questions, right? It's taking the knowledge that you have and putting it into clinical practice. And that's exactly the way the exam is. They're clinical questions. Okay. Hang on, I'm just catching the wait 1 second. So it's okay to it's not okay just to memorize the concept guide or memorize the information. You have to be able to put that into practice. If you see a patient with a work injury, or you see a client with an environmental exposure, how do you treat them? Kind of like you're doing with the HESI prep, right? Does that make sense? So your exams are very med-surg focused, as we've talked about. Hang on, sorry. Med-surg focused. Sorry, just getting people last group in. Med-surg focused. Your exam includes pediatrics, knowledge of pediatrics, knowledge of OB, since we're talking about pregnant teens. Okay, so remember that. If you can use your information on your concept guide and put it clinical judgment, clinical practice, you'll be fine on the exam. Okay, I already did my review this morning, and thanks, maybe a couple of people on this from this class attended. I think I had a total of 10 attend, so that was okay. I've already sent out the recording. Everybody has the recording in their announcement. Okay, so there's 1 of 3 recordings. All right, Professor Ford does hers tomorrow, and I've also sent you the schedule. I resent it to you. It's not different. I just resent it to you so you'd have it handy and you wouldn't have to go back and look through assignments. Okay. Hi, Nakia. So you have the schedule. Professor Ford does tomorrow night, and then Professor Kershaw does Sunday night. And you'll have both of those recordings as well. Oh, did I not unlock it? Okay. I'll be doing that in a little bit, Nakia. I thought I unlocked all of them. About the quizzes for quiz 4 today. I'll check on that. Do you guys have access to quiz 4 yet? You do. Oh, Nakia, I know what you're talking about. Okay, I'll sort that out. So you'll have access to two more live recordings and two more live sessions, and you'll have access to all 3 recordings. I'll try, you guys don't test till Wednesday. So I'll try and get Professor Kershaw's out. Hopefully she sends that to me Sunday night. I really wanted Sunday night because of my Monday classes. Okay, because I have people testing on Monday. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Any questions so far? Groups. How y'all coming in groups? Everybody made contact with your groups. Everybody know what their assignment is. So just to summarize, okay, don't be sending me the portion that you did. Somebody in your group is supposed to put it all together. Everybody has their own assignments. Somebody needs to take the lead of putting it all together into a paper or a Word document. Okay. That needs to, the final project needs to be submitted by each student. I get that there'll be four of the same things being submitted. I get that. But everybody has to submit their own copy for it to get tagged in the grade book. That's why everybody has to submit a copy. Okay. I don't care. It goes in the discussion thread. It's like a discussion question. I don't care if you copy and paste it into the discussion thread, or I don't care if you submit it as an attachment. Doesn't matter. As long as it's there. Make sense? And remember, it's due a week from today. That's in the guidelines. It's due on Wednesday. Because as discussion questions, also you'll have to Sunday to respond to 2 your peers' papers. So remember that your group, it's due next Wednesday. I've already got 3 or 4 papers already. So good job with the early work. And then the other thing is, remember, okay, Danya, thank you. Does that leave 3 of you?
Yeah, it's just gonna be 3 people in my group.
All right. Well, sorry, but you're going to have to manage.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So it's going to start getting busy. I talked about this in week 1. Okay. We're in week 6 now. Week 6 this week and week 7 would be a good time to get caught up or work on all these assignments. Because remember, once week 9 starts, well, week 8, you're going to be working on your HESI prep because it's due in week 9. But remember, think about this. Week 9, you have your HESI prep due, right? Week 10, you have your vulnerable populations assignment due. You also have an exam in week 10. And then week 11, you jump right into HESI. So it's going to get busy in a couple of weeks. So please be working on these assignments. This would, after week 6, after today, it would be a good idea to go back into your HESI prep assignment, because you can fill out probably 60% of it already. Okay. Don't wait till week 8 to be doing that. Don't. Okay. It's going to take too much time. Does that make sense? So be working on everything now. And just to clarify, I've had a couple of questions this week. Your infectious disease group project is a paper. Okay. Tamu, thank you. I'll address that in a minute. Your vulnerable populations assignment due in week 10 is the PowerPoint. That's the PowerPoint. Okay. This paper, infectious disease paper, is not a PowerPoint. If we have time, it's due in week 7. If we have time in week 8, we'll do some short presentations. Your group will present for a couple of minutes on what you did, what you learned. Okay. If we have time in week 8. Okay. It's no big deal. It's very informal. So don't anybody blow off week 8 of class because you don't want to present. It's very informal. Okay. Homework grades. They're not on yet. What do we have this week? We have NCLEX and quiz 4. So I'm going to wait until, because technically we're not halfway done. The end of this week is the end of week 6. I think I said in the announcements, I'd turn it on in a couple of days. I might wait till Sunday, just in case. That's the end of week 6. Making sure everybody turns in their NCLEX and then turn it on Sunday night or first thing Monday morning. So then they'll be on for week 7 and week 8. Does that make sense? Why do we turn on homework grades? If you're turning in your, I don't usually have a lot of issues with homework. I try and stay on top of you guys. Okay. If you're having homework issues and the homework grades come on, it's going to bring you down. So if you see yourself with an 80 right now and you haven't turned in your couple of NCLEX assignments, you're probably going to be around a 77, 76. Okay. If you're turning in all your homework, don't worry about it. It's just going to bump up your grade. So it's really for you to see how your homework is affecting your grade. Like I said, if you're turning in your homework, it's going to go up. If you're not turning in your homework, it's going to go down. And why do we do that? Because at the end of the term, remember, you need a 78 for your homework to count, right? So after your 3 exams, pardon me, your HESI and your 5 quizzes, which are all key graded assessments, if you don't have a 78, then your homework doesn't get counted in. Everybody knows that, right? That's been standard through your whole program, right? So, any questions about that? Nope. Okay. Let's go in and do some content today. I want to point out to you, I'm going to start by going into our module. So this week you have your NCLEX and you have quiz 4, which we'll do in a little bit. This week, your occupational environmental health reading is in your Canvas. All right, so let's go through that. All right, first of all, what's environmental health? What's occupational health? Let's start with occupational health. What's occupational health? If you're an occupational health nurse, what are you doing?
You're working in the workforce.
Workforce. Occupational health is the workforce. Okay, the occupational health nurse, well, let's go through these notes. Occupational environmental health nursing is a specialty practice. So it's another role of the community nurse. So we've talked about faith community nurses, hospice, palliative care, school nurses. Well, now we have occupational nurses, environmental health nurses. So again, it's just another specialty under the umbrella of community health. All right. So the goal is to provide safety and health programs to workers, worker populations, and community. Okay. So it focuses on restoration of health, prevention of illness, injury, protection from work-related injuries, environmental hazards. Okay. We know that poor employee health. I mean, every place you work has an occupational health department. It just does. You have to. It's part of the OSHA standards. All right. Poor employee health can cost businesses up to, it's estimated 1 trillion annually, whether it's by illnesses, surgeries, maybe sick babies, injury on the job. Well, think about what can happen in your workplace. Accidents. Okay. So the occupational health nurse is simply responsible for maintaining health and safety in the workplace. Okay, here's some roles he or she may play. All right. Think about it. think about working in a hospital or wherever you work right now. Think of how many roles there are, meaning how many job descriptions there are. And think about all the different risks within those job descriptions. So let's say you work in the OR. Those have different risks than if you're in food services versus environmental health services versus transport, right? So everybody's got a different job description, but the occupational health team is responsible for knowing what those job descriptions are, knowing the tasks that everybody's going to have to perform, and making sure people are trained and informed appropriately. Remember when you go take on a new job, you always have to go through the orientation training? Well, occupational health always comes to visit, don't they? And they talk about disposal of PPE, disposal of fluids, lifting techniques, making sure everybody's up to date on their immunizations or your TB screening,
Stress
right?
management.
What?
Can you say stress management
Stress
too?
management, right? So not only do they focus on the risks, but they also focus on health promotion, right? In the big school district I worked in, we had a whole occupational health slash, what was it called? Health and wellness department, where they focused on, they did in-services all the time, healthy eating, quitting smoking, exercise, stress reduction, balancing family and work, right? That's part of their job. Okay. They're also case managers because let's take somebody who's got hurt at work. Okay. They had an accident. So they're off now. Well, the occupational health nurse has to coordinate everything. She's coordinating with the actual employee. She may be coordinating with the doctor, maybe coordinating with human resources, trying to establish family medical leave. Maybe the client's coming back on limited duty. Where do they go in the organization? What can they do? Can they go back to their same job or not? What kinds of support do they need in the workplace? What kinds of accommodations? Right?
Would that
Lots of
be
things to think
tertiary?
about. Yeah, so they've had an injury. So all those are tertiary interventions. What accommodations are they going to need? Do they need retraining? What if they have a back injury from work?
Tertiary.
Right? Yeah. So what do you have to do when they get back in there? You have to do some retraining on proper lifting techniques, right?
So you have to like assess it.
Yeah. Well, you're following the doctor's orders. Whatever, hey, Lorna is cleared to go back to work. However, Lorna can't do this. And so that occupational nurse has to, okay, can we accept you back? Because we have a limited duty for you, a different job at limited duty, or we don't have anything that's going to accommodate what your restrictions are. Okay. So that's the whole case management. Remember, the case manager is the coordinator, right? So there's a lot to coordinate when you have workplace issues. Then think about counseling and crisis intervention. We spend about a third of our time at work. There's lots of people that have mental illnesses, substance abuse issues, addiction issues, drug issues. People bring their stuff to work, do they not? They do. So you can't expect everybody to leave all their personal things outside the workplace or outside the school place, outside your school environment. Lots of students have other issues going on, right? Besides school. Okay, so you have to be aware of what support, well, first of all, what's going on and what support your students, or for me, my students or workers might need. I mean, think about the workplace violence. That has skyrocketed over the last several years, right? People are not getting help. They don't have the resources, right? Most large corporations have on-site or contract with, they're called employee assistance programs. Everybody heard of those? These are mental health resources or resources that employees should have access to. Talk about whatever, substance abuse issues, family issues, kid issues, personal issues. Okay. And then also health promotion and risk reduction. That's part of their role too. Like I said, they develop classes on positive lifestyle changes, lower risks of disease, lower risks of injury, right? Work family balance, personal health. We talked about that. Smoking cessation, fitness, nutrition, weight, stress management, and on we go. Okay. They also have to be concerned about the legal and regulatory compliance. Okay. Everybody's heard of OSHA, right? Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Has anybody ever been involved in an OSHA visit? It's pretty frantic, right? OSHA will come and visit you. Well, they'll come and visit you regularly to make sure you're following the occupational and environmental health standards. Every organization, whether you're a bank, a fast food company, a hospital, a nail salon, everybody has standards. They may look the same depending on the type of work environment it is, okay? But everybody has standards, different standards. You have to be following them. OSHA will come to visit you. They can come unchecked, but they can also come on a routine visit. But they will visit you if there's a problem. Let's say there was an unexplained death in the operating room. Let's say in a food restaurant, there was a fire, or people got sick and they had salmonella. I'm just throwing out examples, right? Nail salon, somebody gets burned or somebody, whatever. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? OSHA is the governing body for making sure that each business, whatever that business is following the guidelines. Okay. Remember, there is no work environment that doesn't have risks. Okay, so we don't just think a hospital is the only place that has risks. What about a fast food place? Maybe risk for fire, risk for spills, risk for contamination of food, right? Or even a bank that has steps walking up to the bank at risk for fall. What if there's a snowstorm? Nobody shovels, people fall. I mean, think about it. There's no workplace that doesn't have risks. I guess that's my point. Okay. So, one of the things the occupational health nurse needs to do in the workplace is identify potential hazards, monitor those hazards, make sure people are up to date on their training, evaluate, analyze these hazards. This is the nursing process, right? Walking around, seeing what's going on. You know, did the maintenance people leave a big puddle when they mopped the floor walking in so that visitors coming in are going to trip or slide? Right? There's lots of stuff that can go on. What about businesses that work with toxic chemicals? Do workers know what to do if there's a chemical spill? Do they know how to handle chemicals if they routinely handle chemicals? I mean, the whole goal is to keep people at work, prevent work-related injuries or accidents, have employees at work and functioning at work 100%. Okay. So the occupational nurse is actually a really critical part of the health team in the organization, right? Really critical part because, you know, your big bosses at these companies or hospitals, what do they want? They want people at work, right? They want people healthy at work and doing their job. Okay, you start having injuries or accidents, you got to figure out why that's going on. I use the example of let's say you're working in a big power plant or a car plant, whatever, and it's super noisy. Well, are people in the plant wearing their headphones? Right? So maybe you do annual screening, hearing screening for these people. Are they protecting themselves? What about somebody that works in an environment that has extreme heat and extreme cold exposures? How do you protect those people? Okay. So you get my drift? Okay, so let's just jump down and make sure we covered. So yes, the nurse conducts an assessment of the workplace. I started with the Canvas reading because I wanted to make sure you guys knew that was there. So reread that page. So we're occupational nurse conducts an assessment. We talked about that. All right. Think about the nursing process. Conducts an assessment. Decides what job descriptions may be at risk or parts of a job description may be at risk, right? Identifies hazards. Work with the employees to train and educate on potential hazards so that you avoid accidents. Safety education on equipment. Right? So, as I said, the occupational nurse is going to see various injuries and potentially diseases. One of the most common health issues in our country is chronic diseases. So people are going to be coming to work with that have chronic diseases, right? So that's something else to monitor. And we talked about every single industry as risk factors. We talked about the roles, case managers, consultants, crisis intervention, health educator. Okay. Legal and regulatory compliance. We talked about that. What are some primary, secondary, and tertiary interventions for occupational health? Well, maybe primary is teaching coping strategies, coping mechanisms, providing education on a healthy diet, educating on the use of proper lifting techniques or using protective equipment correctly, right? Secondary, we're screening. Like I said, maybe we're screening for hearing loss in very noisy plants. Blood pressure screening. Screening for stress and burnout, really important, right?
Depression or substance abuse.
Screening for substance abuse. Screening for anything, really. Right? How do you keep your workplace safe and healthy? Yeah, you go to screen for all that. You know, you've got an employee that's acting out and other employees are coming to you, or they're making threats, or they're not getting along with people, whatever. That should raise a little bit of a red flag for you, right? Maybe as the occupational health nurse, you sit down and talk with this employee. How's everything going? Can we do anything to support you? We have some concerns. And then tertiary, something's already happened. They either have a chronic illness at work, they've had an accident, they've had an injury from work. What do you do? Well, maybe, like I said earlier, you bring them back on limited duty. Maybe they're a new diabetic. So helping them with resources to support managing their diabetes. Providing, if we've had back injuries, providing re-education on proper lifting. Or if they're sitting all day, maybe we provide some education on standing up and walking around. Because remember, employees are coming to work with stuff. If they don't have an injury or an illness, they have a medical condition. I know when I went into all my schools over the last 20 years, in my initial staff meeting at the beginning of the year, I used to say to all the staff, it's none of my business. However, if anybody carries an EpiPen, any staff carry an EpiPen, if you would like to let me know where that is, and please let me know. You don't have to let me know. If anybody's a diabetic, if you'd like to get with me and show me where your extra insulin is or your pen, right? That's important stuff to know in the workplace. You may have coworkers that carry around EpiPens that you wouldn't even know. They have some kind of allergic reaction. You have no idea they have an EpiPen. Okay. Environmental health.
I have a question,
go.
please.
Yep, go ahead.
I read somewhere, an ergonomic workplace. What does that mean? Like, is it a place that is like a special?
It's like a setup. It's
Okay.
like whether you stand to work on your desktop, whether you sit, it's kind of a special. Have you ever seen anybody with those high desks where they're standing typing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
So somebody with a back might want an ergonomic workstation so they can sit for part of the day or stand for part of the day.
Okay.
Okay. Environmental health, big problem. Think about the community you live in. Think of all the environmental exposures and risks you have. I take it for granted that my air is healthy, my water's healthy that I drink. When I go to a restaurant or a fast food place, I take for granted that everybody in there is preparing the food correctly, handling the food correctly. Do you guys take that for granted? I do. I take for granted that where my house is, it's a very old house in a very old neighborhood, that it wasn't built on some kind of a wasteland. Right? I mean, think about your own community. Think about the risks. We don't. I don't. I live near a huge highway. I live right near the main thoroughfare. It's called I-70. It goes from the East Coast to the West Coast. I can hear the traffic. That's how close I am. You think the air for me is healthy?
Nope.
Probably not. Probably not. Do you live near an airport? Do you live near an industrial? Do you live in an industrial city? Do you live near a waste site? Do you live near a nuclear power plant? Do you live near a? Do you live in a city that has crowded living conditions? Do you live in a city that's dirty? Lots of trash around, needles. Do you live someplace where the crime rate is high? Gang violence. Think of all that. Right? One of the most important things to remember about environmental health is children are the most vulnerable to environmental exposures. Think about it. They're so small, they're close to the ground, they pick up everything. And especially when you're talking about, say, they live in homes or go to schools that are before 1978. And let's say paint's chipping off the windowsills. What do kids do? Eat it.
Put it in their mouth.
Put it in their mouths. Okay? And then think about environmental exposures during pregnancy. I mean, think about all the stuff you have in your house or your apartment. Think about all the cleaning stuff. Think about all the gardening stuff. Weed kill. I mean, just think about all the environmental stuff you have around. Right?
Mhm.
We don't necessarily think of all that as risk. Well, if somebody gets into it, it's a problem. Okay? Say you live in a city that has a high poverty rate. Maybe you don't have the same access to food. Big grocery stores. You don't have access to the same quality of food. Maybe you don't have access to newer school buildings and kids are in old school buildings. There might be additional risks for that. Maybe there's some genetic disposition, say asthma, family history of asthma, family history of autism. Okay. So when you're doing an environmental assessment with your client, where they live, where they work, where they go to school, where they send their kids to school. What's their dietary history? Do they eat a lot of fish? What if they're fishing from the local stream for their food? And what if the water's contaminated or not as healthy? Did anybody ever see the movie Erin Brockovich? It's a movie about an environmental disaster in a small town in Texas or maybe California, where a big power company is dumping waste into the water system and not telling anybody. Well, she works with an attorney because all these people in this small town are getting crazy kinds of cancer and birth defects. And anyway, it turns out this company was held liable for millions and millions of dollars. It was an environmental disaster, water contamination. Look what happened in Flint, Michigan, a while back with the water contamination. Right? So if you're the community nurse, you need to do these as you're doing your assessment of the community. What are the environmental risks? You can actually go into the EPA website and plug in your zip code, and it will shoot you back what the environmental risks are in your zip code. For me, one of my top environmental risks is air quality in my zip code. Why? Because I live next to the highway, big highway, tons of trucks. It's the main thoroughfare through the whole US. He talks about lead poisoning. What about pesticides? Well, we talked about that. Oh, go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just out of curiosity, I looked it up and everything. Yeah, it was made in 2000, and it kind of gives you a brief summary
Of what?
about the Aaron Brockovich movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's absolutely insane.
It is
Julia
insane.
Roberts played in it too.
Yep, yep, yep.
That's crazy. I'm sorry. I just want to look it up.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
take a
So
look at
I
it.
mean, it's a movie about an environmental disaster.
Yeah,
Okay, and
it's
there's
interesting.
lots of stuff that goes on. You hear about train derailments recently, right? Lots of train derailments, lots of fires in plants. I mean, there's a lot going on in all of our environments right now. We talked about knowing all what we have in the schools have cleaning supplies, daycares have cleaning supplies, hospitals, lawn care, farms. There's environmental stuff, environmental products everywhere, right? And again, exposures to toxic chemicals during fetal development are an issue. Okay. It's estimated that 30 million Americans drink water that doesn't meet the EPA safe standards. It's estimated where 50% of Americans live in a community that does not have air quality that meets the national standards. Food contaminants, if the restaurant or wherever is not preparing the food correctly. You get salmonella. Remember no, you guys don't have that discussion question. We do as consumers have the right to know. Okay. Consumer confidence reports, right to know reports are available to us. Okay. You can get that. You go through the EPA, and everybody knows what the EPA is, the Environmental Protection Agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So environmental health is a big problem. Lots of stuff going on. Anybody have any questions about occupational environmental? Let's talk about learning for a little bit. Let's talk about this part first. Reinforcing education. Okay, so we know that as a nurse, our job is to educate, right? A huge part of our job is to educate. We educate in every role we work in. Doesn't matter where you're working. All right. When we educate, we try and do it collaboratively if we need to bring in a team. So if you've got patients that are going home that had a stroke, we're collaborating with physical therapy, right? Occupational therapy, home equipment if they need it, oxygen equipment if they need it, right? That's all part of the discharge plan. And when do we start discharge planning?
During admission.
Admission, right? We're always assessing what they might need because the eventual goal is to go home. Okay. Right. So the ultimate goal of patient education, assuming it's at the primary level, is the prevention of illness, right? Promotion of wellness, restoration of health. That's why everybody in their employer should take advantage of all those preventative in-services, healthy eating, stress reduction, balance, right? Patient education is one of our most important roles. All right. And patient education goes through the nursing process, right? You have to have a problem before you can plan a program, right? So you're analyzing the assessment data, you're establishing your goals of what they need, right? You're putting together a plan, implementing that plan, right? Let's take, for example, a workplace that has a high absenteeism rate, and it seems like it's with a lot of the diabetic patients. Well, there's a good opportunity to get this group together and do some teaching about what's going on, why you're missing work. Do you not know how to take care of yourself? Do you not have access to the equipment? Do you not have access to insulin? Do you need some help in learning how to help manage your that happened to me in the schools. You know, you have a new diabetic and you see that they've been absent for 3 or 4 days. That was always a phone call to the parent. Hey, what's going on? Well, they're just not comfortable taking care of themselves, and bring them to school. We'll work with them. Does that make sense? Some education levels or prevention levels in education. Maybe primary, we're teaching women to avoid before and after sex to avoid cystitis, teaching parents how to role model healthy eating. Maybe we're educating parents on the importance of immunizations, right? Secondary, we're screening for the high risk. Maybe we're teaching an elderly woman, and just by being an elderly woman, she's at risk, right? Teaching an elderly woman the signs and symptoms of a UTI. Maybe teaching the importance of colonoscopies, mammograms. And tertiary, remember, they already have something. You know, maybe you're teaching a patient with hypertension the importance of a low sodium diet. Maybe you're teaching a new diabetic how to use a glucometer. Okay. We do know that learning has not occurred until the behavior has changed. Right? Behavioral changes are hard. Does anybody work with anybody that every time you try and implement something new, this particular person or group of people go, no, no, it's okay. We've been doing this for 30 years like this. It's fine. Anybody work with anybody like that?
Yeah.
We do. Change is hard. It's human nature to take the path of least resistance, right? Especially with habitual behaviors. Change is a cyclical process, right? What are some barriers to learning? Patient education, as we know, is one of our most important roles. Okay? We want patients to take personal responsibilities for their health, right? We want to try and motivate them to be more involved. If they're involved and understand what's going on, they're much more able and willing to make the changes they need. Okay, so education to clients empowers our patients with knowledge and motivation, helps them take personal responsibility. And we should be educating in every role we're in. One of the most important barriers with education is low literacy. And I would say that condescendingly. Low health literacy. Why might that be an issue? Maybe it's people are afraid to admit they can't read, or they can't read. They have a very low education level. Maybe it's a cultural thing, right? Maybe it's a language barrier.
Lack of self-confidence.
Lack of self-confidence that they're not going to understand it. All right. One of the best ways to do an assessment on that is give them something to read. Have them, if you suggest something, if you suspect something's going on, give them something to read. See if they can read it and understand it. If you have somebody that doesn't speak the language, right? They come in and their first words are no speak English. Find an interpreter, right? Then when you're giving them discharge instructions and they don't speak the language, give them a pamphlet with the written language in their primary language. You know, when you make these calls or you're in a doctor's office, it's Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, right? There's lots of options now. Even here, when you make a phone call, press 1 for English, press 2 for Spanish, press 3 for whatever. So low literacy is a huge problem. We need to be in a position to have a solution. If there is low literacy, what are you going to do? And we're not going to give them a dictionary and say, hey, learn the English language. Okay, we have to come up with a strategy to get that information to them in their primary language. Okay, another barrier is their readiness to learn. If they're not motivated, they're not going to learn. It's kind of like students in the class. If you're motivated to listen and learn what's being covered, great. If you're not and you're distracted, you know, you're just not motivated. Okay? We talked about cultural issues, personal expectations. You know, some people may not see what they were just diagnosed with as serious. They don't see the long-term effects. It doesn't matter what you say. This is pretty common in the rural settings. They just don't see the seriousness of it and why they have to take their medications every day. Right? So that's our job to educate. Right? We have to modify our education to you got to know the room, know who your population is. There's three ways we learn: visually by seeing, auditorially by hearing, and kinesthetically by doing. Right? What if you have a group of people you're trying to teach that are hearing impaired or vision impaired? Are you going to modify your teaching to meet their needs?
Mhm.
Okay. And then there's three different domains of learning, and we all possess them. Cognitive, it's the thinking part. So the ability to read information, understand it, memorize it, use it. Okay, that's the thinking part. Okay, and then we have the affective domain, which is the feeling part. What if somebody's in an in-service with a topic they don't agree with, or the topic they have issues with? Right? Maybe their attitudes and feelings and beliefs towards that topic are going to prevent them from learning. Right? And then psychomotor is the hands-on. Okay, so you've got the thinking, the feeling, and the doing. Okay, so psychomotor is doing. All right. It's not, don't confuse the three, because you are going to get asked about these. Okay, psychomotor, doing, practicing the skill. All right, so can the client use a glucometer? Keep practicing over and over till they can do it. Right, learning a skill, learning a new task. They have to do it and practice it. So we all possess those three. I'm a psychomotor learner. I got to have hands-on. If I have an issue with anything electronic, I call my kids. When they try and explain it to me on the phone, I don't know what they're talking about. I make them come over and show me. I just can't figure it out when I get instructions over the phone. I'm a true psychomotor learner. Yes, I have some cognitive abilities and affective abilities when I'm learning, but most of my learning comes from psychomotor. Okay. That's a quick summary of our content for today. What do you think?
Mhm.
Is everybody involved in patient education? Should be. That's what we do. Okay. All right, let's take our quiz. Quiz 4. It should be open. I don't need to know when you're done. Let's 11:40 or it's 1:48. So let's come back at 50. Let's come back at 10 after. So that would be 12 2:10. How's that? Then we'll spend the last 10 minutes going through the quiz. How's that? So you got 15, you got about 17 minutes. Take your time. It's a pretty easy quiz. It's all clinically focused. So get on there and do your quiz and then stay on camera. If you have to go up and use the restroom, fine, but stay on camera. I need you to stay on camera while you take the quiz. So if anybody's on their phone trying to take the quiz, your camera's going to kick off. You gotta sort that out. Okay? I'm going to mute
Like it now,
everybody.
right?
Yep, you can start now. Everybody mute themselves. And we'll see you in 15 minutes. I mean, I'm here. I'm just going to turn my camera off. Chris Kenge, can you check the chat, please?
All right.
Hi, Professor. I'm done. I want to use the bathroom quickly.
Oh, please mute yourself. Okay, thank you. Okay, you got about 5 more minutes. We'll finish up at 2:05.
Is anybody still working on this?
How much, what question are you on? 10? All right, just give me a thumbs up when you're done. Nikki, are you done? Everybody needs to submit. And we'll go through it. Okay, so Nicole? Where's Nicole? Where are you? If you're going to take this at a later time, Nicole, where are you? Looking for you. Maybe she jumped off. Okay. I think I had one student who wasn't Sata. Were you able to complete did you get it done? Okay. So Nicole's the only one that wasn't able to complete it due to, I think, some internet stuff going on. So everybody come back on camera, please. Oh, Nicole, there you are. Nicole, were you able to take any of the quiz? Everybody come back on camera, please. Roger, you done? Nikia, you done? Did you submit it? Then Nikia, I sent you a message in the chat. About number 2. Okay. All right. What time is your class, Nicole? Nicole,
Yeah, I'm not going. Are you circle or what?
Nicole,
Yeah,
so I want, okay, Nicole, I want you to send me an email of when you're available tomorrow, okay? And then you can log off. Okay, so you can log off because we're going to go through the quiz. So you can log off and send me an email when you're available in tomorrow, or we can even do it Monday or Tuesday. We just have to do it together. That's all. Okay, so Nicole, you can log off. All right, let's go through. Nicole, I'm going to remove you, okay? It's no big deal. It's all right. We'll get it done in the next couple of days. No big deal. Okay, Nicole, did you hear me?
No, I didn't. What you say?
It's no big deal. Just I want you to log off since you haven't taken the quiz, and we'll get together in the
Okay.
next couple of days. No big deal at all. Just,
Okay.
no big deal. Just let me know when you're available tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
All right, and then we'll get it done. No problem.
Oh, okay. I was so upset. Like
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. No
I don't
problem
know
at
what
all.
like happened.
Okay, no big deal. Just log off and then let me know when you can do it tomorrow, okay?
Yes.
No problem at all. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's go through this.
I'm
Share
getting.
my
I'm getting. Hold on. Let me get off before you start.
All right. Okay, can everybody see? Okay, so what's the answer to question number 1? Which statement is true regarding children and environmental health hazards?
Their
D.
proximity. Second one.
Yep. I hope everybody got that right. Okay, so their proximity to the ground, we talked about that. They pick up everything, they put everything in their mouths. During a home health visit for a pregnant client, the nurse notes the client's husband regularly uses pesticides at work. Which nursing intervention is a priority? Before you answer this, there's 2 things about this question I want to point out. There's a key word in the question, which a lot of students miss on exams. The key word is priority. Okay. The second thing is, this is a good example of a question that if there's potentially more than one correct answer and it's not a select all that apply, then you got to go back and read the question and see what you missed. Okay. In this case, you might have missed priority. So what's the answer?
To remind the husband to remove work clothes outside and to not let the
Right.
wife handle them.
Right, she's pregnant. We don't want any exposures. Okay, yes, you could do B. Yes, you could do C. Yes, you could do D, but it's asking what the priority is. Priority is you have a pregnant mom, pregnant lady. Home health nurse works in the community with high rates of complex chronic illnesses and neurological disorders. That's a lot of stuff going on. Complex chronic illnesses, neurological disorders. Which environmental characteristic again is a priority?
The presence
Presence of several individual plants.
Right, right. B's not correct because it's not before 78. I mean, I guess D, you could do that eventually, but it's asking for the priority. Okay, so this may be community that's living near several manufacturing plants near the river. The nurse is reinforcing education about the diabetic diet. Which statement indicates a barrier to learning? So okay, so before you answer that, this is a negative question. This is a negatively worded question. Okay, there's negatively worded questions on all the exams. What I mean by that is, which client statement indicates a barrier? So you're looking for something the client says that's wrong or that's incorrect, right? So go ahead. What's the answer?
I think I would
use
use a keto diet.
Right. Right. After going through all your teaching, they say, I think I'm just going to use a keto diet. Well, you know that that's not correct. They need more teaching. Right? It's kind of like the smoking mom who says, hey, don't worry, you know, I vape now. Does that require more teaching?
Yes.
Yeah. So look for those negative questions. I'm observing a new nurse on orientation doing discharge planning about post-stroke care at home. Which does she say to the client that indicates I have to do a better job of teaching her? So she says something to the client that's kind of iffy, right? You guys get that? Okay, which nursing intervention will enhance the learning of a client who speaks English as a second language?
Create a pamphlet in the client's
Right.
primary language.
Right. All the other three, I mean, they're interventions, but it's still not in their primary language, so they're still not going to learn, right? Home health nurses reinforcing education with the use of a glucometer. Which approach would be most effective?
Okay.
Right. That's the teach back method, right? Right. We don't want them watching YouTube videos. We don't want them, you know, calling a neighbor and asking them. We want them to demonstrate what you've taught them. That's that psychomotor learning. Right? Home health nurses reinforcing education for an 8-year-old with type 1. Which approach will be most effective? Most effective. Another priority word.
Play
Teach
toys
to
for
play
dolls.
with toys and dolls.
Right. The other three are not developmentally appropriate for an 8-year-old. Right? When we teach young kids how to care for their type 1 diabetes and have them practice giving shots, we do it in little pillows or their dolls, or that's just developmentally appropriate. The other three is not. The other three are not.
I'm almost positive that was a. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm almost positive that was a question on our first exam too.
Mhm.
Okay. Which nursing intervention is a priority? A keyword for a client who is not motivated to learn. Not.
Establish trust and rapport.
Right. That's the first thing we need to do, right? Establishing trust and rapport.
Stop, don't you open that door. No.
Everybody understand why that's important. That's the first thing that has to happen. Occupational health nurse is caring for a client who reports low back pain, and it's worse at the end of the workday. Which nursing intervention is a priority?
That's lifting techniques.
Right, right. We're not in a position to recommend a massage therapist. We don't know what's going on. We're not in a position to recommend medication. We don't need for them to go get a referral. We need to assess their lifting techniques. Back issues at the end of work. Crystal clear. Show me how you're lifting. And then which statement is true regarding scheduling of client education? Do we do it on our terms or their terms?
When
Yes.
the client is most
With their
comfortable.
terms.
Their terms should be completed when the client is most comfortable, right? If the client is most comfortable at a certain day, maybe they want to have family members present, right? Then maybe they want to do it after they eat. I don't know. But however you can accommodate them is going to increase the retention of the teaching, right? Versus rushing and saying, oh, I only have 10 minutes. I have 10 patients and I got to do this with you right now. Right? So how'd you do? I saw a lot of 10s. Everybody do good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, anybody have any questions? Helpful? Did you learn a lot today?
I did. I
Lots
do.
to think about. Lots to think about with community nursing.
Can I maybe stay back with you if you don't mind?
Yeah, I have to get going in a couple of minutes. I have another commitment at 12:30. That's why I'm ending 10 minutes early.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, stay on. Okay, well, that's it for me. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. You know where to reach me. Try and get to one of the 2 live sessions. If not, at least watch all the recordings. You have my recording from this morning. Please reach out when you get done studying. And if you're still struggling, reach out to me and we'll schedule a time to meet. Okay?
Okay.
Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of the week, everybody.
You